he doesn't define himself. He initially tried to be a moderate candidate because he believed that the Bolsonaro base would always be with him. So he tried to be moderate. With the succession of scandals, the audio with Daniel Vorcaro, that Flavio Bolsonaro is still a candidate, it's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
There are many indications, and certainly when Kassab says this, you need to pay attention to the end of the sentence that Rodrigo read very well. He says, when the Workers' Party shows who Flavio is and the people around him, he will collapse. What is Kassab saying? There is much more to come to light. And when it comes to light, Flavio will go under immediately.
Now, he owes a lot of this to the complacency of the Brazilian press. Imagine if we had a truly professional press that had been asking him questions at press conferences, that kept repeating this story on Jornal Nacional, on the main news programs, etc. Maybe this candidacy wouldn't have any strength left. That question hasn't been asked until today. About the driver today on ICL, primeira edição, he mainly talks about the 12 million that are going to Texas. Basically, it hasn't been asked until today in any press conference. Nowhere the candidate goes. Not even when someone from a radio or TV station comes up with a microphone to talk to him in some way. It hasn't been asked on any occasion.
That's right.
This story doesn't get picked up anywhere after The Intercept wants it.
That's right.
So yeah, he's staying afloat largely because this case hasn't been in the news.
And Chico, he promised he would provide an accounting of the 61 million reais within 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's already been how many
90.
months? A month and a half?
More than 2 months.
I think.
Yeah, more
or
than
less,
60 days.
Provide an accounting. The possibility of the move,
And the
everyone will
contract.
see how it was to this day. He hasn't presented anything. That's 61 million reais that disappeared.
And the contract, he says, no, it was a contract between private parties. Where is the contract? Well, private parties, but a bank that benefited from actions by the Rio de Janeiro state government through the pension fund, BRB, which is perhaps the most serious case. The federal district is on the verge of bankruptcy because of the operation to rescue Banco Master. So, yes, there are agreements between private parties, but Banco Master benefited from the political scheme. So he has to explain, he has to show the contract, he didn't show it, and nobody demanded it from him. That's what's really incredible, Chico. It's important that you mention this.
Nothing? Come on. Okay. The reporter to ask this question?
By the way, I heard about the story of Kassab, which is related to Flavio's story. But this signal, this statement from Kassab, which is quite direct, right? When he wants to, he can be slippery, but this time he was very straightforward. That José Guimarães, who is the Minister of the Secretariat for Institutional Relations, he's the one who's been making the arrangements, right? With the parties negotiating there in Congress to pass the measures that are important to the government, that when he heard about Kassab's statement, even he at first was very surprised. He said, I can't believe it. I mean, even the minister who's responsible for making arrangements with the parties was taken aback by the stance.
Because I speak strongly to Kassab.
It's strong.
You know, for his style, that's a strong statement because he says nothing. Nothing.
Zero chance.
Yeah.
The chance is zero.
Hey, look, the Centrão is already gone. It's goodbye. There's no more chance for him to hitch a ride with anyone from the Centrão. So he faces the consequences.
That's it.
Well, we're going to keep talking about this story. There's another side that we'll address later on, right? Which also has to do with the Centrão. But I want to talk about President Lula planning to kick off this year's election campaign with a marathon of podcast interviews. It's a different moment, and the government is also adapting to this moment, to these new forms of communication, according to reporting by Gustavo Uribe from CNN Brazil. President Lula wants to engage with young people under 30 years old. So the PT team's assessment is that President Lula had a lot of support from this group in the last elections. But he lost voters in this age group to the right. Voters shifted to the right in this age group now in this election. So we're talking about people who are going to vote for Flávio Bolsonaro and also for Renan Santos, these two far-right candidates in the end, right? And today, in an interview on the podcast Não Inviabilize by Deia Freitas and Ais Cunhães, President Lula was very informal there. Just so we have an idea, we are going to watch a clip from this conversation. Let's go.
Lula, tell us what moisturizer you use, what scent.
Que tá cheirosinho. Qual que é, Janja? O hidratante?
Eu comprei na Coreia lá que eu tinha esquecido.
Ai, tá.
Comprou na Coreia. Ah,
Os
minha filha, isso que
coreanos.
coreano.
Ó, pediram pra eu perguntar também.
Into Korea. Korea
I saw it here and it gave me a bunch of cream.
Mentira que ele trouxe. Ele trouxe creme. Saiu
Annoying.
eu também trouxe
Cream. Was it cream?
Ninguém fala.
And what did he bring? A package of cream. Then you use a Korean one. So look at that.
No, now I'm giving away what he gave me.
You like it, huh?
Just buy it.
No, like, it's a new way of communicating, but I'm an old-fashioned man, right? I don't even know what moisturizer this is. My wife bought it.
Daniel? Go ask her,
Yeah.
right? But this thing is good. He doesn't know how to do that.
Do you use moisturizer?
I want to use the same one, the one the president uses. This podcast
Belize,
it's really big in
Cunhãs,
Ceará.
yes, for
Cunhãs.
sure. It's a podcast that's just
we've
about
already
politics.
listed it. But I'm more familiar with As Cunhãs. Yeah, and he also talked about the ministry of dating. That was another conversation that was more relaxed, more laid back and all kind of in the same style. But he talked a lot about politics. Politics in Ceará. He talked about that Chiro thinks the world revolves around him. That nothing else exists in politics except for him. That he's the greatest. So he talked about everything. That's a topic, but that's the new strategy.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I think the strategy is very good. In 2022, the then candidate had the obligation to participate in all the debates. He didn't have a choice since he was running for president. But the highlight of the 2022 campaign was going on podcasts. If you remember, on Podpah. Were two young guys, and it was very important for President Lula to participate in Podpah, which was relaxed. They talking about politics. Lula talking about his life. You know both of them. You know Podpah. The two young guys were very moved by President Lula's story, and it had an exceptional impact. So this strategy of speaking on podcasts, I think it's very smart. It doesn't necessarily mean he won't participate in the debates, but I think giving priority to podcasts like Flow, Três Irmãos Inteligentes, Inteligência Limitada, I think it's a very smart strategy.
And the fact that it's informal doesn't mean he won't talk about politics, especially because... Exactly.
And communicate about what he's doing with that.
Because Lula, while he's betting on dialogue with young people, is going to launch his candidacy this Sunday in Vila Euclides, which is the place where it all started. And one thing that doesn't contradict the other, especially because the guy who used to hold assemblies, who went to the factory gates, is the guy who knows how to talk to the people, who knows how to come here and speak informally, because that's how he used to talk. His base with the metal workers, right? It wasn't with super formal speeches and all. It was based on informal conversation. So if anyone knows how to talk informally, it's Lula, right? Yeah, maybe the difficulty is with the new topics. There are topics that maybe he's not so familiar with, but that's actually good to show. That's normal. People know that. Young people know that older people have some topics they are not familiar with, that they get confused about. That's the kind of intergenerational dialogue that's interesting, right? That can be done.
And I think it's going to be important because, I don't know if you noticed, of course you did, Flavio Bolsonaro in the interviews, he only does them online. He doesn't show up in person at the places.
Apparently he does that.
He reads the answers on the teleprompter. No. The answers come on the teleprompter. The questions are arranged in advance, and you can see that he is obviously reading his answers. So there will be a big contrast between an 80-year-old man who is lively and a young man. How old is Flavio Bolsonaro?
And
there
spontaneity,
are few
right?
people who aren't able to speak spontaneously.
That's true.